social sanctions on them, and there might be a few Massachusettsians, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, who take the opposite view, but the point is that it's not, you can exclude, and it's not perfectly rivalrous. If you defend the West Coast, you have less ships to defend the East Coast, and vice versa. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that with regard to the military, this argument for the claim, or this claim that says that we must have government doing defense because of the public goods problem is wrong. Now there might be other articles or other arguments for this, but at least that one is wrong, and that is the most popular one within the economics profession. Okay, I've done, as I said I would, what have I done here? I've done the military, I've done environmentalism, I've done roads, and I've done immigration. And I was told to go for about an hour, and it's now an hour, so thanks for your attention. And we can now have questions and discussion. This young man here.
You said the speed limits on the privately owned roads should be from 60 to 65 to 80.
Did I erase that? Oh, there it is. Yeah.
If they own the road, shouldn't they be able to make the speed limit whatever they want, like 1 mile or?
I'm sorry, if they own the roads, what?
Shouldn't they be able to make the speed limit whatever they want?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They should be able to make the speed limit whatever they want. Like if you come to my house, you have to wear a funny hat with a propeller beanie. I can make any rules I want. But if I made a rule that you can only go 1 mile an hour on my highway, do you think I'd have many customers? No. So it's probably not a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't say that this is the right idea, I'm just speculating. I'm saying we don't know. Right now, Washington, D.C. tells us, and they give us the double nickel. Remember a while back with Carter, we had the double nickel. You could only go 55 miles an hour, which was a total disaster. See, what I'm saying is, this is one possibility. Maybe another possibility is, I don't know, 55, 70, and 85.
Yeah.
Maybe that would work better. And we should have different roads trying different things and see which rules of the road satisfy consumers most and which reduce debts the most. Yeah.
Regarding anarcho-capitalism, when you say privatize the army, given the subjectivity of what's considered just, what legitimacy do law enforcement, agencies have or groups have? What if one guy creates his own law enforcement group, another guy creates his own law enforcement group on what he considers just, and the other guy establishes on what he considers just? How do you necessarily resolve that conflict in what's just? Because that's my main thing I'm wrestling with.
Let me say the question for the people in the back. Did everyone in the back hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, some say yes, some say no, so I'll just say it and see if I'm answering the question you asked. The question is, and I have to put it in my own words, this privatizing the military is all well and good, but suppose one defense agency says X and another says non-X, how do they determine which is just and which is right?
Well, actually, not so much army as much as law enforcement. Because we're talking about the little old lady, who wants to when you use the example of the little lady who wants the factory to stop, polluting her clothes. They're infringing on her rights. What recourse does she have? Given that a law enforcement agency or a group is going to basically do whatever, it's going to do the bidding of whoever pays it. So. Okay. So the question is, the little old lady goes to court, and suppose the court doesn't pay her and doesn't uphold her view, and suppose they uphold the manufacturer because the manufacturer has more money. Now, the way I would answer this question is say it's not really a question about police, and it's not really a question about armies, it's really a question about private courts, which I haven't discussed, but I'll discuss it right now. How would private courts work? How would they determine these sorts of things? Ayn Rand had this model or this response to libertarians, who she considered hippies of the right. She would call us hippies of the right. That's how I attempt to channel Ayn Rand. Suppose
you have a situation like this. You have A and B that have an altercation. And A goes to court C, and B goes to court D. Now, A invites B to come to court C, but B says, court C? Unjust. And B invites A to come to court D, but A says, you know, I'd rather be dead than be caught in court D. Now, it's possible that both C and D will support A, in which case the case is over, because they'll both have courts and armies or police, and they'll both find in favor of A and B loses. Or it's possible that they'll both support B, in which case even Ayn Rand would say there's no problem. Now, it's possible that D will support A and C will support B, which is unlikely since A picked C. So let's take the case that Ayn Rand took, namely that C finds in favor of A and D finds in favor of B. And then she says to the libertarians, well, what now? And her answer is blank out. There's no answer. Now, David Friedman has some answers, and Hans Hoppe has some answers to that, and Murray Rothbard has some answers to that. David's answer is a little different than Murray and Hans. I'm a Murray and Hans fan on this one. And what they say is that there are two kinds of courts. There are legitimate courts, and then there are bandit courts. What are legitimate courts? Legitimate courts are, in the view of Rothbard, courts that go along with the non-aggression principle and homesteading and legitimate title transfer, as I indicated what the libertarian view was. Bandit courts are courts that say, my client is right no matter what, and especially if he's got more money. And what all three of these people say is that the bandit courts will tend to go broke. Because every time a legitimate court meets another legitimate court, they will discuss it and try to come to some sort of understanding and agreement. Whereas any time a bandit court hits a legitimate court, they fight, and if a bandit court hits another bandit court, they have to fight. And fighting is more expensive than negotiating. And therefore, the bandit courts will tend to disappear.
Well, that's not necessarily true, though. Given that a court stays in business by having a customer, you know. And let's say a factory. Let's just say a factory B is their customer. Wouldn't you then say that they would stay in business because factory B is like their patron?
You know, we did have free market courts. We had law of the sea, merchant courts. Somebody would export a bunch of pigs from Germany to England in the 16th century. And the contract called for 100 pigs, healthy pigs, and the guy in England said, you know, I got 90 pigs, and 50 of them were sick. And the German guy said, well, I sent 100 good pigs. How did they settle this? Well, they had judges, and they would pick a judge beforehand. They would say that if we come up with a dispute, we will go to Court X. Why do we go to Court X? Because Court X can't be bought. Court X is reliable. Nobody's going to go to this court that always finds in favor of the richest guy. Yes?
That argument, I think, works reasonably well for civil damages, you know, contract violations and such. But what about cases in which there is no party, such as...
There is no what?
There is no... normally you have two consenting parties before the transgression occurs. What if you have...
Externalities.
One person... No, let's say you have crime. Let's say you have a tort.
Yes.
You don't have people consenting beforehand, so you won't settle on a court.
You're right. Here we have two people, one suing each other, but now we have a case of a rape and theft, where there's no contractual connection between the two people. Here they're arguing over the pigs or whatever it is. Okay, so now we have, I claim that that shirt you're wearing, you stole from me yesterday. You say, you know, take a hike, or don't be ridiculous. Well, what I do is I go to court, and the burden of proof is on me, And if we have legitimate courts, they will find roughly in the same way that good courts nowadays do. But look, let's contrast government courts and private courts. Will private courts work perfectly? No. Perfection is denied us on this side of the Garden of Eden.